So welcome to today's session that we're going to talk about higher education and some data breaches that have happened over the last year or so. And we're going to look at, for the next 30 minutes from a gender perspective, we're going to focus on 3 areas in this particular webinar. We're going to look at some of the top challenges that the colleges are facing. Then we'll look back at 2012 to examine some trends in the EDU breaches, within the EDU breaches, to see what we can learn, and we'll unveil the official March Madness bracket. Lastly, we'll look ahead to 2013 and offer some best practices higher education institutions can use to better protect database assets. Protecting data in higher education is very, very, very much different than the private sector. There are some unique challenges in the EDU space. So on one side, higher education is all about the free exchange of information. On the flip side, institutions really need to create a secure data environment. So those two goals really conflict with one another. And it leads to some challenges, and I have a couple of these listed here. And the population certainly at institutions varies from extremely technical to novices. You also have many departments that are siloed, meaning security can sometimes be decentralized, and that makes securing those systems sometimes very difficult. Schools also have a ton of personal information to protect. There's existing students with all of their grades and financial information. There's prospective applicants that are about to potentially join the institution. And then there's also a wealth of information about alumni and donors to the school. So there's a lot that schools have to deal with. And of course, colleges have it's not a 9-to-5 workplace environment. Students and faculty need access 24/7, access anytime, anywhere. In addition to all these unique security challenges, there are a number of different regulations exist. There's FERPA, which is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, and there's also HIPAA. So if your students need health care, or if you're collecting any health care information, it's your obligation to protect those health records under HIPAA. PCI, Sarbanes-Oxley. If you're taking credit card information, as most institutions do, you need to protect that credit card information. So there are also some other state and federal privacy regulations. I won't go into them all here. I just wanted to point out that there are some regulations that you need to be concerned with from an educational perspective. So before we unveil this year's top 64, I wanted to just give a quick disclaimer. As you'll see from the brackets in the following slides, data at higher ed institutions is clearly in the crosshairs of attackers. It's sometimes easy to get, sometimes not as easy to get, but there's a lot of good data that attackers want to get to. We do not want to use the brackets as, basically we're not saying that security is lack at the institutions. Actually, it's just the opposite. The intention is not to show that it's lax. It's to show that it's really pretty challenging to go ahead and secure your data. So coming up with a comprehensive data security program can be hard. The intent of the brackets is to bring awareness to this challenging data subject by showing the importance of data security in a little bit different light that some people can relate with. And without further ado, we announced the 2012 Higher Ed Data Breach Madness Bracket. And we're going to start with the top 32. And the bracket is a graphical representation of reported data breaches in the higher education market throughout the United States. And based on publicly reported data breaches compiled by the Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, the Data Breach Madness Bracket's reflected outcome is specific to the number of records breached at higher ed institutions. Basically, the larger the breach, the further each institution moves on within the tournament until an eventual champion is crowned. So that's how we kind of work the data breach madness. You move, the more breaches you have, an institution has, the further they get into the bracket. So here we're showing the results of the first 2 rounds, where schools such as Holy Family, University of Florida, Central Connecticut and BYU all experienced breaches and made the top 32 in the 2012 Data Breach Madness brackets. Next, we're going to move on and unveil the Final Four. We're going to skip a couple of rounds and go right down to the Final Four. So our Final Four, rounding up the Final Four, were the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, Arizona State University, Northwest Florida State College, and Nebraska. So these schools become the 22nd through 25th higher education institutions since 2005 to report data breaches in excess of 100,000 records. In fact, since we started in 2009, this data breach process, it's the first year that all Final Four institutions experienced breaches of at least 100,000 stolen records. Let's dive a little deeper into the Final Four. Let's discuss the University of North Carolina, Charlotte first. In this particular breach, misconfigurations of a system was the main cause for exposing 350,000 records containing Social Security numbers. Down in the Southwest, Arizona State University also made the Final Four. Here, there was an encrypted file containing 300,000 records, and that was accessed by an unauthorized party. Over in the Southeast, Northwest Florida State College had a breach where nearly 300,000 records were accessed on a server by a hacker. And lastly, the University of Nebraska had a breach of 650,000 records. So as you can see, what I'm showing you, there's actually a couple of different examples of breaches. Some might be directly to the data. Some might be data that got taken from a database and then ended up on an endpoint, and that endpoint ended up getting breached. So I guess the message is your data can get breached in a number of different ways, but in reality, it all starts at the database. So let's actually not get into any more details about the Final Four. Let's get to our Final Four winner, which leads us to University of Nebraska. Looking a little deeper into University of at this particular breach, what happened here is the officials at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln identified an undergraduate student who was responsible for the intrusion into the university's database that contained personal information of more than 650,000 students, parents, and employees. So it had just about all of the data that you could want in this one particular database. The intrusion, which is described by university officials as a skilled attack, exposed Social Security numbers, names, addresses, course grades, financial aid, and other information. So there was a lot of information that was included, and it affected a lot of, there were a lot of people that were affected. And it happened with anyone who had attended the university since 1985. So students, alumni, and applicants at all four of the university campuses, including Omaha, Lincoln, Kearney, and the medical center, were all affected by the intrusion. The breach also exposed personal data and financial information of parents, for parents of students who applied for financial aid at the institution. And lastly, the way that it was found by a computer services network employee, staff member that basically discovered the breach in the Nebraska Student Information System. So this breach was pretty big. The attacker went after the data, and they got a lot of it, and it contained a lot of valuable information. So what does this mean? What does this mean for the University of Nebraska? If we look, we could say that the data breach could cost the university over $92 million. Where do we come up with this figure? Well, there's an institute, the Ponemon Institute. They come out with a yearly study. It's their this year, the annual study, U.S. cost of a data breach. They basically go out, they look at all the different costs of what happens when a data breach occurs. The cost to let people know that a data breach occurs, the cost of reporting, the cost of potential lost business, or in an institution's case, possible lost students, any possible lawsuits that might occur. So it takes all those factors and comes up with an average cost. The average cost that they estimate is $194 per record breach. Now that's in the commercial space. In the EDU space, that cost is far low. It's actually $142 they estimate per record. So if you take that $142, multiply it times the number of records breached, and that comes out to $92 million. As mentioned before, this past year was the first since 2009 that each institution in the Final Four saw a breach of 100,000 or more compromised records. Currently, there are 25 institutions since 2005 that have seen such a substantial loss. This past year has really seen a substantial uptick when we look at a year-to-year basis in the amount of total records breached. If you look right over here, we've had about 2 million records breached in 2012, which is actually more than 4 times the amount in 2011. Just a little bit more than 2009, and a lot more than 2010, and a lot more than 2009. What is actually interesting is if you see the number of breaches, it's actually been pretty steady, roughly give or take 10 to 15% up or down over the last 4 years. So the number of breaches have been about the same, but the number has certainly increased by the big ones have become bigger. So let's actually move on to the biggest breaches of all time, with that being said. So compared to previous years, this year's winner, the University of Nebraska, settles in at third all time at 654,000. The largest is, of course, the University of California, Los Angeles breach back in 2006. So we talked a lot, today about some of the breaches and some of the numbers. Again, we want to stress that this is not about the lack of security within institutions. It's to really talk about the challenges that institutions face when trying to protect their data. So where do you turn? How do you go ahead and develop better practices for securing your data? So now that we've established some of those methods that an attacker uses to enter a database, determining the layout of the database and ultimately disrupting or extracting sensitive information from the system. We've covered that. Let's turn our attention to figuring out how to prevent attackers from accomplishing this. And we're going to do this today. We're going to talk about controls. Our philosophy at Application Security, what we do is we have a software solution that enterprises, government agencies, and higher education institutions use software solution you install within your environment to protect the database. There's a vault in a bank that gets protected. Think about the database as the vault within your own institution. That's where the data lives. So we have a software solution that helps protect that database. We're going to talk about our solution, DB Protect, and how it can help you, but we're going to talk about it in general terms and with a 5-step process to securing your databases. So whether or not you use our solution or you try to apply maybe you pick and choose a couple of things within your own environment that might work, and you do them one-off, you need to get started with some of these steps to start securing your data. We like to talk about being very proactive and eliminating all the issues up front before the issues actually turn into breaches. There's no need to have someone accessing a database that has no right to access a database. You wouldn't leave the door to your house open in the middle of the night, right? That's a possible, that's a vulnerability to your house that a robber could come in and a burglar could come in and rob your house. So close the gaps, close the obvious gaps first, and then put a monitoring policy in place and be reactive on the back end. So first we're going to talk about these first 3 steps of being proactive, and then we'll talk about being a little bit more reactive after the fact. So the first step you really want to do is to take an inventory of your database assets. Know what you have. You can't protect what you don't know about. So, for example, if when we talk to our customers and prospects, they might say, we have 37 SQL databases, 42 Oracle databases. They think that they might know what they have. Well, in reality, there are a lot of databases that exist out there that you don't know about. There could be some rogue database that was set up by someone in a test environment that exists, or maybe it's just a database of someone's music collection. Obviously, not an important database you're concerned with in some aspects, but in other aspects, any big database that's on the network, if someone can get into one database, it becomes kind of a Trojan horse. You can get into other databases. So you really want to know what's out there so you can protect your overall database infrastructure. So with our solution, TB Protect, the solution goes out and automatically, intelligently locates all databases so you can obtain an accurate inventory of results. So you can go ahead and quickly find databases across the enterprise. It's pretty easy. You basically go ahead, use a wizard-like interface, search for databases by IP, database type, and more, so you can identify the databases deployed with your own institution. The end result is you're going to get an accurate inventory of reports, and it's not just a point-in-time scan. There's also a comprehensive scanning methodology, active discovery, that identifies databases on an ongoing basis to protect against the risks associated with newly deployed, forgotten, or unauthorized databases. So if you do a scan today and some new database pops up tomorrow that's existing on a network, you're going to know about it. So it helps protect you on an ongoing basis. But at the simplest terms, if you don't have a solution, go find out what databases you exist. It's going to be much more manual, harder to do, but know what databases exist, what versions they're running, and that'll at least help you understand a little bit better what you need to do within your environment. The next thing you want to do is to find the high-risk issues and fix them, right? Find that your door's open in your house, close it. There's a broken window in your house that an intruder can get in, close it. The database is very much like your house, right? There are high-risk issues that exist. Low-hanging fruit. Get rid of those issues. Fix those issues. It might be weak passwords, default passwords. It could be that there's an old version of the software that has a security flaw in it. Get rid of those issues up front. So the way that you do that using, if you manually do it, it's going to take a lot of time to go and figure out what the issues are. But if you use a solution such as DB Protect, you can leverage the TeamShatter knowledge base. And the TeamShatter knowledge base is basically a knowledge base of about 2,000 known vulnerabilities and misconfigurations that continuously get populated by our TeamShatter team. Our TeamShatter team is a team of research experts. They're world-renowned for finding vulnerabilities and misconfigurations in databases. That's all they do. So it's kind of like having an extra IT person or two within your own organization that goes and finds these issues. The difference here is that's built within the solution, so you can leverage that knowledge base so that you can protect against all these default password issues, unpatched database, 0 days, and so forth. The vulnerability management, it's really the teams in industry helps with the industry-leading vulnerability assessment and remediation component of DB Protect. The TeamShatter knowledge base will help you, generate reports that will, protect your environment. You'll be able to find top vulnerabilities across your database environment so you can focus on the highest risk issues. So we talked earlier about a database that might contain someone's music collection. Well, it's not as high risk because it doesn't have, you still need to be concerned with it, but it's not as high risk because it doesn't contain financial information. It's certainly not as much as a database that might contain, income and students' financial information and financial aid, all the financial aid applications. So you need to kind of prioritize what's going on and then understand that risk and trend it over time so you can show improvement to the proper people within your institution. So once you've gotten rid of those high-risk vulnerabilities, your next step is to go ahead and enforce least privileges. So what does this mean? It means that people should only have the rights to do the job that they have, their own job. They shouldn't have the rights to do more things. So, for example, a professor probably shouldn't have access to an HR database to do payroll, right? I mean, a professor should have access to all the research information that's needed, but you don't want a professor being able to add a couple of zeros to his or her salary. That's not within the rights of his job, and if he's having excessive rights, those rights need to be reduced. That's when we talk about enforcing least privilege. Theory of least privilege is people should only have the right to do things that enable them to do their job properly. So DB Protect, the solution, without the solution, you have to manually go through logs, figure out who has rights to which access to which tables in the database, who has read access, who has write access. It's a pretty complicated process. Well, with DB Protect, that whole process is automated. So the rights management module provides a detailed view of an organization's data ownership, access controls, rights to sensitive information, enables institutions to restrict sensitive data access to the minimum necessary for students and faculty to do their jobs. And even going a step further, you can even uncover what we call toxic combinations of privileges and vulnerabilities. For example, a highly privileged account that has a weak password is a prime attack for a target, for an attack, because if someone can get access to that admin account that has a weak password and has access to a lot of stuff, well, it's basically game over to get access to that account. So you can even kind of go a step further and get reports for toxic combinations of rights within your database environment. So now that you've gotten rid of all the issues, you've gone ahead, you've inventoried your databases, know what you have, you've eliminated as many vulnerability issues as you could, you've enforced least privileges, you've gotten rid of all the excessive privileges, you've done a lot. You've probably gotten rid of maybe, it's going to vary per organization, but maybe 80% of the high-risk things that you could easily do, the low-hanging fruit, you've gotten rid of. What about the other 20%? That's where you're going to monitor for deviations, and we call that precision database activity monitoring. Don't monitor everything, just monitor things that make the most sense to your own organization, and monitor with precision. Lets you focus a little bit more. So with the precision approach, you can actually monitor your database assets based on policies that you set that for critical behavior that you deem high risk within an organization. Now, there are policies that are included within DB Protect that help you figure this out, but you can also create your own custom policies for software and solutions and users that exist within your environment. So if anything happens, if there's some breach that occurs, you can get real-time alerts so that you can address the issue quickly. And there's also audit trail information, so you can track, go back and track information on an ongoing basis. Lastly, not only can you monitor for deviations, you can also respond to suspicious behavior in a very flexible manner. So we call this active response. So once suspicious activity is detected, it's important for organizations to be able to respond in real time. So DB Protect looks for suspicious activity, and when it finds it, it initiates a policy defined so there's an automated response that happens, and that automated response, active response can be configured to do a number of different things. Maybe it's send an alert to the IT staff just to prompt further investigation. Or maybe it's send an alert to a SIM system to correlate suspicious database activity with web application logs for forensic analysis. It might be just to open a trouble ticket. In some cases, you might even want to block the activity. The flexibility is yours to respond in any manner that you feel possible. Now, if you don't have a solution such as DB Protect, you're really not going to be able to monitor in real time. You're going to have to wait for the attack to occur, go back to the logs after the fact, and then figure out what's happened. DB Protect kind of gives you that real-time activity monitoring so you can act quickly if something occurs that shouldn't be occurring. Lastly, what I'm talking about here is analytics and reporting. No matter what you do, you always have to provide a report. I don't care if you're doing accounting, you're doing your latest baseball stats, or Final Four, who's the winner. There's always some statistic that exists. So DB Protect, database security is no different. You want to be able to measure your progress with how you're securing your institution's database assets. So the analytics and reporting are really critical to understanding the overall security and compliance posture. And DB Protect Active Analytics allows professionals within your institutions to document current status, demonstrate progress, effectiveness, and operational efficiency on an ongoing basis. And just to kind of wrap things up, application solutions offer a smarter, more streamlined approach to database security, offering the industry's most effective database defense. If you look at what's happened in the higher ed market over the last couple of years, certainly the landscape is very unique. It's complex. It's challenging. There's that whole conflicting strategy of trying to give free information, free access to information versus protecting the data. And those two things definitely conflict. We've also seen a spike in higher education's record stolen over recent years. So it's been kind of flat the last 4 years with the number of breaches, but the records have increased. So we'll see what's going to happen this current year. Hopefully we'll see that go down, but my guess is we will continue to see an upswing in the number of breaches in 2013. If you're looking for a solution that can help you get started with protecting your institution's database assets, DB Protect is a very scalable software platform that you can install within your enterprise or institution. And it's going to help you solve your database security problems, get up and running quickly, and start to assess vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, get rid of those excessive user rights, and then monitor for issues when a breach occurs. So if you are interested in learning more about our solutions, please visit appsecinc.com. and download a trial of our solution. We'd also love to demo a version of the solution for you if you want to see it in depth. And if you are interested in that, please send an email to sales@appsecinc.com. Again, sales@appsecinc.com. So at this point, we're going to open up the floor for a couple of questions before we wrap things up. We just have time for a couple of questions. I see a few questions that are coming in. And one question is about the database security, or the database breaches. Comment was, I noticed that some of the breaches were database-driven and some were endpoint-driven. How do you protect the endpoint? Well, our solutions, it's answered in a couple different ways. The solution to application security have, we do not address directly endpoint security. Our focus is building software solutions that protect the database. So you might think, all right, well, the endpoint, you don't do endpoint security. How do we address that? Well, there are some solutions that address endpoint solution. We always recommend a defense in depth. I mean, the more security layers you have, the better. But I want to come back to the point of, listen, those endpoints that have data on them, if an endpoint has, 300,000 records on it, my question is, why does that endpoint have 300,000 records? Is there really a reason for that? Should the person that has that endpoint, let's say it's a laptop, be able to get 300,000 records? If the answer is no, well, where do those 300,000 records reside in the first place? They reside in the database. Someone's exported those out of the database. If they don't have access to those data, if they shouldn't have access to that database in the first place, those rights should be eliminated. So laptops that's lost by someone that shouldn't have access to that data shouldn't have had access to that data in the first place. So if they lost that laptop, the data wouldn't have been lost because they wouldn't have had access to it. So we always come back to the strategy, eliminate the issues, eliminate the vulnerabilities up front, so that you're dealing with just the most critical database concerns. Next question is, you talk about a lot of different challenging topics. Where's the best place to start? Yeah, I mean, it's where do you start? There's different layers to securing your database. I'd say probably the first place you want to start is to really understand what you have from a database perspective and what vulnerabilities exist. You know, maybe you know, if you don't have a solution, you know, do a manual process of trying to count all your databases, figure things out that way. I mean, it's pretty hard to do. If you just want to go ahead and kind of get a quick glimpse of what's happening with your databases, I would say there's a solution off our website you can download. It's a no-cost trial. It's actually for 30 days where you can kind of point at your database environment. It's called App Detective Pro. You get an inventory of your databases at a high level and some of the vulnerabilities that exist. So at least you'll get a picture, a high-level picture of what you're up against in addressing some of you know, your database concerns. But definitely know what you have and try to understand the vulnerabilities so that you can, you know, down the road start to eliminate some of that risk. I think we have time for one last question. This question's around some of our product solutions. You talked about App Detective Pro and DB Protect. What is the difference? So App Detective Pro is a solution that we have that's it's a point-and-shoot solution that allows organizations, institutions to quickly assess what's going on within their database environment. It's a desktop solution. It's a point in time. You take it, you install it, get up and running in, you know, about 15 or 20 minutes, and you do a scan, and then all of a sudden you start coming back with all these results of all the databases that you have and what vulnerabilities exist. And auditors love it because it can help assess the compliance posture of an organization pretty quickly, and you get a number of reports. So again, there's a free 30-day trial that you can try. I definitely recommend if you want to get started somewhere, start with that. But again, point-and-shoot desktop solution. DB Protect, once you're real serious about database security, that's where DB Protect comes in. It's an enterprise solution. It's geared for ongoing, continuous database security and compliance. It contains all the dashboards, enterprise-type features you'd expect to see in an enterprise solution. That contains database activity monitoring, active response. It really addresses those 5 steps that we talked about earlier, so that you can be both proactive and reactive in your database security initiatives. So at this point, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's session. And I hope you enjoyed everything that we covered today. And again, if you'd like to learn more about application security solutions, please visit appsecinc.com or email sales@appsecinc.com. Thank you.